losers, I'm Coral. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here today with the books that I read in the second half of January. This wrap up isn't going to be quite as long as my wrap up for the first half of the month, so fear not. Or, sorry to disappoint you, I don't know where you fall on that spectrum. Anyway, let's get on with this shit. In the second half of this month, I did end up reading 7 books. But total for the month, I read 18 books. 13 of these were off of my TBR, so those are books that I owned previous to this year. In total, I read 6,034 pages, which is about 194 pages a day. I read 2 fantasy books, 9 horror books, 5 thrillers, 1 true crime, and 1 book that is literary fiction. The years these were published: the first one was published in, or the oldest one was published in 1995. Then we jump all the way to 2005. I read 2 books that were published in 2018, 1 from 2020, 4 that were published in 2021, 4 that were published in 2022, 3 that were published in 2023, and 2 new releases, so those were published in 2024. Those are both arcs. I like to keep track of the series that I've read, and this month I did wrap up 1 series. And then also for the Read What You Own challenge, I read 13 books that count towards that. So that puts me at a total of 36 for that. So I am 36% done with that. Okay, so I'm going to start out with the couple of audiobooks I listened to in the second half of this month. I still have a couple that I had on hold at my library before I started the Read What You Own challenge, so some of those are still coming in. Some of those were, the wait for these were like months long when I first put them on hold. So the first one here is Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian, and this one came out in 2023. This was like a horror western, and I liked this. The narration was really good, and this was a story, and we're following like kind of a medium-sized group of characters. It wasn't like really huge, but it definitely was not like a small amount, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't Game of Thrones size, but it wasn't a small group of characters. There's quite a few, and oddly enough, it's weird. I'm reading like more than I'm reading at least 3 books where there is a character named Rose recently, which is a weird coincidence. But in this, there is a woman named Rose, and she is recently widowed, and she is just kind of like not really sure what the fuck she's going to do. This takes place like, it's like Westward expansion days. So it's like, this is 100% in my wheelhouse. So she's homesteading and her husband dies, and she's like, oh, she didn't really sign up for this. She like met her husband in the newspaper, you know, back when they did that. And so she had previously been a school teacher. She meets her husband, and so she like knows how to work the farm, but this is only kind of a recent thing for her. So she's like, I don't think I want to do this by myself after her husband dies. And so coincidentally, she meets up with this group of other people. They are hunting for a witch, but with them is this young girl who doesn't speak, and they call her Rabbit, and she doesn't like belong to any of them. Like, none of the men in the group that she's with are her parents. So Rose kind of feels like drawn to follow them, kind of to take care of Rabbit, and basically it becomes this story where it starts out kind of small and it gets big, and it's very strange. But there's like witchcraft and like outlaws and possession, and it is a really fun, interesting story, and not one I feel like I would typically like, because it's like characters on a journey, and I feel like that template for stories can get really repetitive for me personally, because it's like, oh, we go here and we meet these people, and then we go here and meet these people, and then we go here and meet these people. But I feel like it was just really wacky and exciting, and I ended up really liking it. So I would recommend this one for sure. It was longer, but in the audiobook format at least, like I really enjoyed my time with it, and it was like a blast. So next I listened to Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. This is one I was dying to get to, and this also came out in 2023. You might recognize Chuck Tingle. He is kind of really well known for writing these like irreverent smut books that are like, I don't know, it's like pounded in the butt by like my lost Amazon package. Like, I don't know, just the weirdest shit ever. Like I made out with the COVID-19 virus, just like the strangest shit ever. And this is like his debut horror novel, and it's like more serious, right? And this is about Rose also, who is a young woman. And it's kind of interesting because she lives in this community that's like low-key occult, but it's like, it's kind of, it reminds me almost of like the Quiverful, like Duggar family situation, where it's like, it's not quite like Jonestown cult. They keep the wraps on it so well that the people inside of it don't really understand that it's a cult, and probably the people surrounding them don't really understand it's a cult, and probably the people surrounding them don't really understand it's a cult, you know what I mean? But like us as readers, you look in it at it and you're like, ugh, this is so culty, right? But so she is like not even out of high school, but she's 20, and that's just the way that they do it there. So that's kind of weird and interesting. So they really treat her like she is a child, even though she is an adult at this point. Like, she's still living at home, but she's 20, but she hasn't graduated high school yet. And I don't even know how to, I have to be very vague about this. You know that there's something wrong. You know that there's something wrong. And I think Rose knows that there's something wrong too. And she's just a girl who is very devout, and her family is very devout. She lives in like a really strong Christian community, and she is doing her very best to follow her religion and be a very strong, devout young lady. But maybe she can't be. And I feel like the less you know, the better. And I really enjoyed this a lot. And like, my heart hurts so bad for this character, because it's one of those where it's like, you know, before she knows what's going on, and you know that it's going to change her life forever, and it makes you so sad for her. And it's like so insidious. It's like, these people are so terrible. And it was really great. And I'm really excited to see, I don't know for sure. I feel like I did see that Chuck Tingle has another horror novel coming out, but I don't know for sure. I could look it up. However, I'm not going to. I'm just gonna let that go out into the universe, that I think I saw that, and I'm not gonna back it up at all. But I think either way, I really hope that he does write more, because I would like to see some more. Like, the ideas in this were really interesting and kind of strange, and I would like to see more serious horror stuff from Chuck Tingle. Next, a book I DNF'd this month. This is Beneath a Pale Sky by Philip Fracassi, and I was really hoping I would like this, and this is a short story collection. I read 3 stories in this. I read exactly to page 100 and I like didn't want to pick this up anymore. I really didn't like either of the 3 stories that I read, and I just like, I have less time to read now. I just don't need to have that happening to me. And so I was like, man, this really sucks because I want to like this book. I've really loved the other 2 novels that I've read by Philip Fracassi, and so part of me really wanted to like stick it out and like push through it, but I don't want to. So I DNF'd it, which makes me kind of sad, especially because like I know people really enjoyed this, but if I read through 3 stories and didn't like it, like I think that's enough for me to, you know, that's okay. And you know, maybe I'll pick the rest up at some other point in time, but for now, that's enough of that for me. So, also, oh, okay, so this is a book that I'm going to be doing a full discussion on. This is All the White Spaces by Wilkes. I will be doing like a full out spoilery discussion on it, but I just can't fucking even with this book. I have a lot to say about it. For now, I'll just say I didn't enjoy this book. And I would have 100% fucking DNF'd this book if I hadn't picked this for, you know, this upcoming discussion, right? So I'll have a lot to talk about when I do that. So I don't know if you read this with me. I'm really, really curious if other people felt the same way about this. Well, if it makes you feel any better, the rest of the books I'm going to talk about today, I really enjoyed. So then we have Reprieve by James Hahn Mattson. This came out in 2021, and this, okay, so I'm not saying that this is not a horror novel. I think it's kind of unfair. It gives people unfair expectations, I think, labeling it as that, because it has some horror aspects, but this, I think, is more literary fiction with some horror aspects, because this is about this spooky house with this like full contact escape room. It's like a haunted house escape room, full contact. So the actors can touch you, and they like hit you and shock you. And it's like I wouldn't want to do this. And in this book, there is like multiple timelines in this, and in this event has happened where the escape house, it's called the Quigley House, and they open it up for people to compete in the escape room, right? And if they make it to the end, there is like a cash prize. Obviously, like it's an escape room, so there are puzzles to solve and stuff like that. And these people are like assaulting you, and it's weird and gross. And these people almost make it through, and at the very last room, somebody breaks in and stabs one of the contestants, and he ends up dying. So it's like, you know, that this event happened. That makes it seem like it's a horror book, right? But most of the book you do spend with like multiple characters, the people involved in this event, and like their backstories and how they got involved in the escape room. So most of the book is that, and I did really enjoy that, but I think calling this a horror novel does set people up and might, you know, it might be a letdown if you go into this thinking that this is a scary book about a scary escape room, because most of this is not that at all. But there are like parts of the interview, you know, when they're talking about what happened, like how did this happen? They're trying to figure out how did this happen. So there is this mystery too of like, who is this man who stabbed this person? Why did he do this? How did he get in? This doesn't make sense. And it is good. I did like this a lot. But I think to say that it's a horror novel sets people up with unrealistic expectations of what happens in this book. It's one of those books, oh god, the ending kind of it makes me uneasy a little bit. a lot of the characters in this are like not nice people, which I like because it makes me feel uneasy, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I saw that like some of the ratings of this online are like not very good, but I think it's because like it says horror thriller on this, and I don't know if it's that. I wouldn't consider it that, at least. So I don't know. I don't know, but I did like it. Okay, next. I would really love to talk to you about A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This was published in 2021, and this is a book that I chose as a predicted favorite of the year, and I am so excited to tell you that this is probably one of my all-time favorite books like that I've ever read in my life. This is told from the perspective of Constanta, who is a peasant in, I think, Romania, whose village is like ransacked by these, I don't know, outlaw dudes. And then she is rescued by this strange man who tells her the only way that she'll survive is if she drinks his blood. And she does, and she becomes Dracula's first wife. And along the way, he has other lovers who he turns, and in this, you know that they do kill Dracula, so it's like, how do we get there? And this spans through like hundreds of years, although the book itself is not very long, and also it's the chapters, I guess, like they're not labeled as chapters, but like the breaks in the writing are very short. But oh my god, it's just like so beautifully written, and I mean, you could flip to any page here and find just a line of writing that makes you want to like die because it's so beautiful. And I loved that. I mean, I really thought that Constanta was going to be like upset or jealous of the other brides, the other lovers that Dracula takes, but it becomes not that, and I was really glad for that. I don't know, it was just such a really beautifully written book. I really loved Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles when I was a teenager, but I think besides, and well, I love Dracula. I read Dracula a couple times when I was a teenager as well, but I think besides that, like I never, but then also like Twilight came out when I was a teenager, and I think that turned me off. And I'm sorry to you Twilight readers out there. I was a very contrary teenager. So when that became like hugely popular and then everybody loved vampires, I was like, I wanted nothing to do with it. And that's nothing personal, of course. It's me being an asshole. I did not, besides those like 2 pieces of media, I didn't really do vampires, and so to like read something and love it so much and have it be like a piece of vampire literature, I'm very, not surprised, but I'm very pleased. This was so good. I really loved this so much, and I'm very excited to eventually pick up more of her books because this is not her first work, and also she's coming out with another book just this year, so I will definitely be picking that up. And last, I would love to tell you about All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. This was published in 2023, and this was another book I picked as a predicted favorite, and I'm also happy to tell you that this I also really loved. This is the 3rd book by Cosby I've read. Is it my favorite? I think that the plot in this is my favorite. I think that this one isn't quite as emotional as the other 2 of his that I've read, but I think that this one is the darkest that I've read, which I do like. Ooh, this one gets weird and creepy. This is another like crime fiction novel. Not something I typically love, but the way he does it is so fucking good. This is about Titus Crown, who is a sheriff in a small county, in Virginia. You know, they don't really have a ton of murders. It's not crime-free, but the crime that they do have is fairly manageable for them. And so when the son of one of Titus's high school friends shoots his former high school teacher, it's like a big fucking deal. And this happens like while school is in session, so it's an even bigger deal. Like, it's a high school shooting, and it really rocks the town. It's a terrible tragedy. And because of this murder, some things are uncovered that it opens a whole can of worms, you might say. And this book gets really dark. There are probably content warnings that you might, I don't know, it's so hard with content warnings because I know that also sometimes they are spoilers. But if you are someone who needs content warnings, I feel like possibly you might want to look those up before you go into this book. It's dark. This is a really dark crime fiction novel. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was so well written. It doesn't have as much of the emotional, like, tugging on my heartstrings as Razorblade Tears and Blacktop Wasteland did, but this was so fucking good. And I think his books are just like, I can't put them down. Once I start reading them, they are so hard to put down. It's like a good TV show, you know? I just can't stop. All right, my friends. Well, those are the books that I read in the last half of the month. I would love to know if you've read any of these, what you thought about them. I would love to know what your favorite books you read this month were. Make sure to check out my link tree if you'd care to look at any of my social media stuff, what I have for sale on Pango Books, what I have in my bookshop.org stuff, anything you might need to find, that's where it will be. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you later.